Hello and welcome to Breakthroughs with Bree, where we are discussing all the topics that create extraordinary breakthroughs in our personal and spiritual development journeys. I'm Bree, otherwise known as Healing with Bree, and I'm a spiritual coach and Akashic Records channelers who helps sensitives and intuitives connect more deeply with their hearts, intuition, and souls, and teaches people how to process and alchemize the fears and beliefs that hold them back from living in their authenticity and purpose. You're in the right place if you like to hear about spirituality, psychology, healing, consciousness, manifestation, developing your spiritual and intuitive gifts, and living from your heart and soul instead of from your fears and ego. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Breakthroughs with Bree. Today's episode is going to be about distinguishing between when something is coming from your anxiety or it's coming from your intuition. One of my best friends is here staying with me, and I went downstairs and I was like, what kind of episode would you be interested in hearing about? What would be helpful to you? And she took a minute to think about it, and she was like, trying to tell between anxiety and intuition about things. And what is so crazy about this is that it was literally on my list, the top of my podcast topic idea list, to do an episode on this exact topic. And it felt like a synchronicity, felt like a sign of okay, well, of all of the topics you could pick, you picked the one that I was already planning to do. And it felt like my guides doubled down on me and was like, yes, Bree, people need and want an episode on this. Please talk about it. And so I'm like, here, let's talk about it. I'm so excited. Some of the examples of situations in which you might be trying to figure out, is this my fear talking, or is this my higher self, my gut feeling talking? And I asked my friend to give me the example. She was like, oh, well, if I'm trying to choose a choice, an option, how to figure out if the choice that I'm making from an intuitive place, or if it's based on fear, or, trying to make the right choice, et cetera, et cetera. Another example that I often hear around this topic is around other people, or maybe even relationships, especially if you're trying to date and find a person. If you get a bad feeling about somebody, should you trust that? Is that intuition? Or if you're trying to date somebody, and you're having just a bad feeling about the relationship, is that anxiety? Is that old patterns and old trauma talking? Or is that your intuition trying to tell you that that relationship's doomed or something, right? Another one is if you get something that feels like it might be some sort of premonition of something bad happening, is that an intrusive thought thing, or is that your intuition? All things that I'm going to be addressing today, because these are so important to start to understand as you're navigating life and trying to do it from an intuitively led place, from a soul place, and not necessarily having your ego drive the shift. The ego mind, our human mind, is so powerful. It is so helpful as a tool, not necessarily as the one driving the ship. The soul, our spirit, is definitely the one that I recommend being in charge. It helps us live a much more blissful and abundant and peaceful life. So let's figure out how we can do that by distinguishing between our anxiety and our intuition. First thing I want to do in relation to this topic is debunk the idea of right or wrong. I get this a lot, especially in my Akashic Records channeling sessions, where I'm tapping into the records of your soul and different soul contracts and different soul paths that you have available to you, and trying to figure out your way forward on a lot of things. And a lot of those sessions have to do with making peace and having closure with past experiences and getting affirmation about ways that you could move forward, but also affirming the fact that you have so many possibilities ahead of you, and there is none that is the right path. Okay? There's not. I've seen this. I've literally seen this when connecting with the Akashic Records, the book of life with everything. There is not just one right path, and either you're on it or you're wrong. That's not how all of this works. Okay? It is so normal that we think that that's the case. Okay, I want to normalize that we think that. The reason why we think that is because we're processing things from our ego mind. Our ego mind thinks in terms of survivability and thinks in terms of binary, which is yes, no, right, wrong, black, white. Because really the only two answers to our ego mind is, are we surviving or are we not surviving? That is its only perspective that it has for us. Everything that it does for us is to keep us alive, ensure our survivability. So it needs only two categories. It only needs to answer, is this going to help me survive or is this not? Okay. So whenever we're thinking in that sort of black and white, that is when we know that we are in the energy of our scarcity thinking, of our survivability, of our safety thinking. Okay. Not entirely a bad thing. It's, again, this is an important realm of our experience to be able to tap into, but is not usually the one that helps us tap into the soul level potential for our life, the abundance of our life. That comes from our soul spirit place. And our soul spirit place can think in nuance. It can think in possibilities. It thinks in terms of abundance, not scarcity. And when our ego mind is running the ship, it's thinking in terms of scarcity, and it's thinking in terms of, is it the right or wrong thing? I cannot tell you how many times I have stressed the freak out about if what I was doing was the right thing. And again, it was like this image of like there was this one higher path. And it's either I was making choices that had me on the path or everything else was wrong. And I was messing it up and I was delaying myself and I was out of alignment. And it was like this very harsh inner landscape and a lot of pressure that I was putting on myself. Definitely have had a lot of healing with perfectionism and urgency energy that was all a product of me living in that 3D scarcity mindset, which also was a signal that my nervous system was super dysregulated and I was not really truly in the energy of believing that I was safe so that I could access other perspectives and ways of looking at it. And I just hadn't learned that that's not actually what's going on from, again, these higher spirit perspectives. Again, what I see in my readings so clearly is that you have so many paths available to you where you are acting authentically, where you are receiving blessings, where you are acting out your purpose, where you are of service, and where good things happen to you. There are so many paths where all of those things happen, okay? There's not just one, and all of the other ones is like less than or something. That's not how this works. Okay. You have many options at all times. Options. You have options. There are an abundance of options for how things could play out for you. So if we know that there are different paths and different options and none of them are inherently bad, then it still comes back to choosing which one you want to move forward on. And this is where we get into some of the fun stuff because you are essentially getting to choose of your abundance of options, which one you would enjoy most, which one you would like most, which one aligns with the vision that you have for yourself. So that's what I really encourage you shifting your mindset about when it comes to making decisions, which we're making decisions all the time. We're creating our reality all the time, right? But when you're consciously trying to make choices, again, if you're visualizing like each action that you take is like a step on a path, I really encourage you to start thinking of what choice is going to align with my values and priorities. Which choice am I going to feel most authentic in? Which choice am I going to enjoy the most? And which choice feels like it takes me closer to like the big dream, the big vision that I have for myself? That is the way to make decisions, not from is this like the right choice or is this going to help me avoid all of the bad things and only have the good things. Those are two very different ways of making decisions and operating. And from my perspective, the second one, again, is when we're in a dysregulated state and we're only concerned about safety. We're afraid. We feel threatened, right? Whereas the other one, the first one that I explained, is when we're operating from our soul place, when we inherently already feel safe. We feel like all of the options have good for us. And then it just becomes a choice of like, what would we prefer? Okay, now that we have debunked this idea of is there a right or wrong choice that creates anxiety, creates pressure, is totally within a framework of scarcity, which means that there's only some good things and the rest are bad. Nope, we're not living in that paradigm. We're not playing in that sandbox. We got out of that. We're looking at it a different way. Now, how can we be really sure that what we're feeling and what we want to act on is coming from our intuition and our soul place and not from our ego? This is one of the biggest and best questions that you can ask yourself. Write this in a journal, put this on as post-it. One of the most important questions that will give you so much information. It will reveal so much to you about where your intention is really coming from. And it is this. What would I do if I was not afraid? What would I want to do if I knew I was entirely protected? I was going to be safe. I was going to be successful in any of these options. I was going to be completely successful. And I was going to get what I wanted in any scenario. If I knew that I was going to be totally good, totally taken care of, what would I want to do? What would I do if I was not afraid? What I think is so wonderful about this question is, again, it takes us out of being concerned about our safety and therefore trying to avoid things that feel threatening, avoid bad things. And it takes that off the table, which immediately helps reveal to us what we might be thinking and what we might be desiring if our safety was not a concern, okay? And when our safety is not a concern, our ego mind has been neutralized and we can step into the space of our soul and we can make decisions from that place. Here's another thing that I think is so cool about this question is that if, again, you're considering different options, this question can work both in its positive and negative form. So what would I do if I wasn't afraid? What this reveals is the action or choice that you're considering taking. Are you acting because you're trying to avoid something you're afraid of? Or are you not acting? Are you denying something that you really want to do because there's something scary and risky about doing it? Do you know what I'm saying? For an example, I invested in working with a one-on-one coach recently, and it was like a big investment, like a kind of investment. Okay. And I was really sitting and working through my fear about that because I could tell it really activated fear. And just so you know, I have a whole episode coming up about fear and the purpose of it and how we can relate to it different and work with it, because it is such a gift. The times that we feel fear, if we are committed to a journey of being more connected to our soul self, of embodying more freedom and love and abundance, fear is so important. But anyway, I was sitting with my own fears about this, and I was like, okay, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? What was really interesting about this is that I had another layer of this question come up and be revealed to me. This coach is related to some business stuff, and me asking myself that question, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? It was also about, like, am I making this decision because I'm afraid of, like, my business failing? Am I afraid of not getting the outcome that I want? And is this choice all about trying to avoid that from happening? Like, is that what's motivating this choice for me to work with this coach, is because I'm afraid of XYZ outcome? Or the flip side of that is, let's just say I was choosing not to work with her, right? Would me not working with her be a result of me being afraid of the investment, or me being afraid of the risk associated with the choice, right? Those are two different ways that asking that question might reveal the motivation. The motivation to not do it is your choice for something else because you're afraid of the thing you really want to do, or is the whole intention under the choice and the option in the first place completely fear-driven because you're trying to avoid something bad? It's so revealing. Your ability to get answers and activate to levels of awareness that will change your mind is so impacted by your ability to ask yourself really good questions. Okay? Never underestimate the power of a really good question. This is, but honestly, one of the things I'm so passionate about, and I feel like is one of my intuitive gifts, is asking really good questions, both to myself, so my own work with my clients. And if you've worked with me, if you've seen my testimonials, you'll know that my clients see crazy transformation, crazy activations, crazy growth, and a big part of it is being able to ask really activating questions like that. So that is my next tip. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? Now, this can bring up some stuff that can feel a little bit confusing, because this can reveal if you are feeling really afraid about something. And again, in my episode all about fear, one of the things that I say is that we've not really been taught a process to relate to our fears, to actually work through them, and to address what they're really about in a way to where the fear dissolves, where we're shifting the thing that invoked the fear in us in the first place, right? Which we need to be able to do, because fears are not some static energy. They are a result of something else. They are a result of a belief that we will not be safe, that a core need won't get met, that our survivability is threatened in some way, right? And our beliefs can change, especially when we introduce new perspective or new information. Okay, so beliefs are not static. They can very much change, but your ability to dissolve a fear has everything to do with your ability to get to the root and what you do when you find the root. Okay, which is my whole trigger alchemy process, by the way. So anyway, but it can be really confusing if you've not been taught something like that, what to do when you notice a really big fear. Here are some examples of how this could play out. Let's just say you're considering two different options at work. Like, you have two sort of almost like promotional opportunities, okay? One of them might be something that is technically like a lateral move, but there are some like really positive benefits, whereas another one is a raise or is a promotion, but there's some things that you're kind of hesitant about, right? Like, there's potential in both directions. It just looks a little bit different. You know, let's just say you're considering two options like that. And maybe you're kind of like leaning towards the promotion because the idea of maybe like a little bit more money or like the growth that you want right away is something that feels on some level like it would be good. So you're kind of leaning that way, but then you do what I've suggested and you're like, okay, let me try and calm my body and let me ask myself, like, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Or the flip of that, what would I do if I knew I was going to be very successful, I was going to get all the things that I wanted, that I was protected and supported no matter what, divinely so? Like, which option would I want to do? And let's just say when you ask that question, you think, actually, what I probably want to do is I probably want to do that lateral move. If I genuinely was not afraid, and if I knew I was going to be totally successful, maybe the way you word that question is like, what if money wasn't an option? Like, it wasn't a factor, right? Because really money is also an extension of our belief in our ability to keep ourselves safe and create experiences that we want and our power and influence over our experience. Money is like a shadow of that. So if money wasn't a question, I actually would want to do this lateral move. I have hesitations maybe about staying in this group that I would get promoted into, something about the role, like I could do it, but I just don't feel jazzed about it. This lateral move, I actually feel really excited about that job, and just something about that team kind of feels a little better. Like I probably want to do that one. Okay. Let me break down the elements of intuition versus fear in what I just described. Okay. First of all, your intuition always speaks through your body. I find that it speaks through my body and also my third eye, and how I can visualize things and how those visualizations make me feel in my body. It's like a two-part system. Okay. Essentially what I was describing is thinking about one option. I almost feel like my body like pushing away from it. I'm like, I could do it. I'm not feeling this hard no or this hard block. Like it's an option. But like, it just feels a little bit icky. It's a little bit harder for me to imagine myself doing it longer than, I don't know, 6 months. Like as I try and visualize the future, like I kind of could, but it just isn't like it doesn't feel good, you know? Whereas when I'm thinking about this other option, and again, I'm taking the fear and the ego mind stuff out of it. When I'm taking the things that feel threatening and that like make my ego mind come into play and try to do all the things that it does to manage our survivability, like when I take those off the table and I think about this other option, the lateral move, like something about the energy of the team feels better. It kind of like feels more open energetically. It's kind of hard for me to describe it. It just feels better, and I like the idea of that job. That job sounds more enjoyable. I can see myself doing it and having fun, and it feels like there's kind of like maybe possibilities on the other end of that I don't know for sure would be there, but just something about it feels better to me. When our body is not in danger mode, the feelings that we have about things, especially considering options, is our intuition. This can be a little bit confusing because when our body is dysregulated, when it is in the danger survivability, fear is also a feeling in our body, and it is so strong, it will always be louder than your intuition. And so you will feel the fear primarily, which is why it's really important to regulate your nervous system, come back into a state of safety, and to mentally kind of rearrange how you're thinking of it, to like take the stuff that is really triggering off of the table a minute so that you can actually be in a state of being. It's almost like opening up your channel to your intuition. Here's the thing that's kind of nuanced and interesting about the intuition versus fear discussion, is that it's not like you can just have a world where it's only ever intuition and never fear. Fear is so important. And even in the situation that I just described, even if I have identified that, you know, the option of the lateral move is something that I would want to do, that's maybe more of an intuitive nudge, I'm not going to be able to take that choice and feel safe and feel open to it if I am not able to truly process and master those fears. I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to be so activated by all of the things that are triggering me in that situation that I'm either not going to be able to like bring myself to accept that job, or every step along the way, I'm going to be so freaked out and in danger mode in my brain, then it's going to distort and block me from all of the blessings that experience would have had for me anyway. Do you understand what I'm saying? So like fear is always going to be an important part of your experience, but if you don't know how to like process and identify and release fears, then it will control the narrative because of the way that our physiology works. Like that is always going to be the primary concern, because if it wasn't, then we would literally be unalived. Do you know what I'm saying? So like we have to learn how to disengage that system in our body, which is nervous system regulation. Look up stuff about polyvagal theory. There's so many ways you can regulate your nervous system. It is not as difficult as you think it would be. Learning how to signal to your body that you're safe. And then also learning how to identify when you are in your fear mind, when you are in your ego mind, versus when you're in your body once everything is safe. And yes, getting to the place where you have clarity about how you feel about options is one thing, but like I said, you enacting those choices and then you moving forward to experience those choices is also going to be influenced if you are not able to truly see fear for what it is and process it. It's not going to matter if, again, intuitively you know that this is the right spot. Like your fears will keep you plugged exactly in the place that you're at, or staying on the path that it deems most safe, which is really what it deems most familiar, if you do not know how to move through them. And here's my other hot take about this, is that fear is another version of your intuition. What? Yeah. Fear is another version of your intuition. Okay. And this is why. I believe that our intuition is always trying to guide us to our path where we are most soul aligned, because when we are most soul aligned, we feel most fulfilled. We feel happiest, most joyful. We feel most at peace and safe. We feel most abundant. We feel most free. We feel like all of the good things that we want to feel, which are the true nature of our spirit, a source, right? Our intuition is always trying to guide us towards that. Okay. But here's where the fear part comes in. The only reason that you're not experiencing all those things that are most soul aligned, all of those feelings, all of those states of being that are most aligned with your soul, is because you have beliefs that are contrary to your nature as spirit or source. It's because you have limitations and restrictions about the way that you think about yourself in the world. That's the only reason that you are not experiencing the soul-aligned version of your reality, okay? It's because your mind and your beliefs, probably some feelings around past experiences that have also not been able to be expressed and moved, are keeping you locked in a place energetically and blocking you from other kinds of experiences, okay? Your fears are the way to snuff out what those beliefs are that are blocking you. So if your path to having a soul-aligned life, so if your intuition is leading you towards a path where you feel most soul-aligned, you're feeling most fulfilled, it would make sense that you also have to acknowledge where within your own self you are resisting or blocking that kind of experience. Your intuition wants you to be free. Your higher self, if we think about it as your higher self, sending signals to you through your body, through your intuition, your higher self wants you to know how unlimited you are in nature, wants you to know the full power of who you are, the full joy of who you are. You cannot know that if you do not face the things that tell you that you are anything other than that. You will never be able to experience that if you don't face the own parts of yourself that are limiting you and blocking you and creating unhealthy patterns. Okay? So to me, I believe that our fears are a form of our intuition guiding us to where we have work to do, where we have old wounds and old traumas that need TLC, where we have beliefs that need to be debunked. Okay? That is a form of our intuition. It's not exactly the same as the other version that we were talking about, where we're getting like feelings about what would be good for us. Okay? Fear is not telling us what would be good for us. It's telling us where we're telling ourselves a story that's keeping us on things that are bad for us. That's just as important as attend to as it is to enact the things that would be good for us. Okay? Because attending to the things that are not helping us is also good for us. Do you know what I'm saying? Here is another tip and another element of this whole intuition versus anxiety and fear story, is that, again, our ego will try and come in and course correct whenever it thinks that there is a threat to our survivability. And oftentimes our intuition is only ever one step at a time, which means every step on the road past then is unknown. Our ego mind has a very hard time with unknown for most people. Okay? The only people who don't have a hard time with the unknown is because they have done a lot of personal work to adjust their beliefs and regulate their body around the idea of unknown. Okay? The default setting on us humans is that we would be very afraid of the unknown because our brain cannot calculate if we are most likely to survive or if it would be a threat. Okay? And that's what our brain is always trying to do. Calculate what's going to give us the best chances of survival. And what it is familiar with is always going to it's always going to feel more confident about because it's already navigated and survived it before in some way, even if it wasn't the healthiest for you. Okay? The intuition is always going to have an element of the unknown because our intuition, our soul is not afraid of unknown things. Nothing can threaten our spirit. Like nothing can harm it in any way. It is energy that cannot be destroyed and is not lacking any single thing. Okay? And it sees the greater picture. It's in league with the divine intelligence of the universe, orchestrating things to happen for good things to happen. So it in nature is just one step at a time, one moment at a time, right? And our ego mind has a really hard time with that. So again, if you're really curious about being able to feel a lot more confidence and am I following my intuition or is this a fear thing? Like you have to learn how to master that fear energy in your body. You have to learn how to regulate your own nervous system around ideas like the unknown, around things that trigger you. Another nuance to intuition is I feel like there's a lower self and a higher self that's always giving us signals. And I don't say lower and higher in terms of like hierarchy of like which one's better and worse. I mean in sense of vibration. I feel like there's an intuition that our body has that's a little bit more reactive. And then there's an intuition that our higher self has that's more proactive. One of the examples that I read in a book by Maureen St. Germain, she talks about how the lower self is like if you're driving on a road that like circles up around a mountain, okay, where like the ledge on one side, cars, whatever, right? The lower self is going to sense like maybe right before it happens if a car is speeding down the road and like you swerve out of the way or you brake or whatever, right? It's like a reaction in the moment. Whereas your higher self is going to give you this feeling to pull over on the edge of the road and take a couple pictures before you keep driving, that has you miss that driver that's driving crazy on the road in the first place, right? The higher self more proactive and the lower self reactive. Both are working to help to keep you safe, to keep you alive, and to also help you have like good experiences, right? But they're just different kinds of responses. I think a lot of times when we have weird feelings about people, it's coming from like our lower selves and we're reacting to something kind of primally, okay? It's just a little tricky because I do think that the lower self can be really impacted by if we're in a dysregulated state. I'm going to keep coming back to this all the time because this is the most important thing you need to know about trying to follow your intuition is, are you dysregulated? If you're dysregulated, it's probably from fear. I'm just going to say that because your ability to perceive your intuition clearly and not distort it through the lens of your fears is very hard when your body's dysregulated. Okay. But with people, if you just get a weird vibe, I'm going to say that it's just okay to trust it. It's just okay to trust it. If you are in a dysregulated state, that feeling is probably going to turn into you judging them, right? And you coming to some set conclusion that they're not good and you should stay away from them, versus if you're in a regulated state and you're in your intuition, you still are feeling open-minded about them. You're just feeling like, I don't need to be around. And those are two very different energies, right? The regulated state, you're like, yeah, there's something about this person, their energy that like has reminded me of other people that I know I just don't need to be mixing my energy with. I don't feel like afraid of them. I don't feel afraid of interacting with them at all. And I'm not even like putting any sort of label on them. Like things could happen that could surprise me. Like I don't know them. Like I'm not limiting who they are in any sense, but I just have enough of a feeling to know that like as of right now, in this moment in time, I don't need to be messing with them. Okay. That's one energy when we're regulated. And the second state with us being dysregulated, the way that we're perceiving our feelings is so different. They've literally done studies about how we perceive the world to be more threatening when we are dysregulated. Like if two people are looking at the same images of people's facial expressions, those with regulated nervous systems perceive people to be more open and friendly, whereas people who are dysregulated, they perceive people to be threatening, like out to get me. Okay? You getting a feeling that somebody's not aligned to you in addition to being dysregulated means that you're going to be like, what is wrong with you? Stay away from me. It's a totally different energy and how we act on that feeling and what we make that feeling mean when we are dysregulated. Okay? So that's just my 2 cents about if you're asking yourself, is it my intuition or is it my anxiety about people? Again, your intuition is not going to put a label on them. It's not going to be interested in judging them. It is going to be like open-minded to like whatever they can do, but that doesn't change your feeling that they're not aligned to you or that you don't need to interact with them in whatever way you were considering interacting with them. But it doesn't mean anything bad on them. It just means like you just don't need to be mixing with them. Okay? Very different. Now, in terms of if you're trying to date somebody and maybe you're like, oh, I'm not getting a good feeling about this relationship. Maybe it's a friendship too, right? Like it's a more like close relationship. I love that question. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? If I wasn't afraid of hurting their feelings, if I wasn't afraid of rejecting them, if I wasn't afraid of the idea of dating again, if I wasn't afraid of the idea of being alone, if I wasn't afraid of myself being rejected, if I wasn't afraid that I could find anybody else, like those are the kinds of questions to ask around relationships. Because if you weren't afraid of any of those things, and let's also think that there was a guarantee that there would be like another person who is aligned to you waiting for you if you were let this relationship go. Like, would you want to let the relationship go? Or would you still kind of be thinking about this person in this relationship? Are you like, no, like part of me like does like want to be with them, like does want to keep like another step further on this path with this relationship. Like I just don't feel like it's time for it to end yet. If you're feeling that, then you probably, again, just want to stay in a relationship with this person for another little bit longer. See how you feel tomorrow, see how you feel the next day. Like we can only take it one step at a time anyway, you know? Again, if after you ask all those questions, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? And you still kind of like the idea of being with them. If fear is off the table, like you wouldn't even be considering not being in a relationship with them, you have your answer. Or if you ask what would I do if I wasn't afraid, you'd be like, oh my God, I would have parted ways with them years ago. Then you need to part ways with them today. I mean, do it in a way where your nervous system feels safe, but like that's how clear that question can reveal answers to you, right? Then it just becomes a question of, okay, now that I know that what I really want, what I really desire, which is the language of the intuition, is desire, like joyful, aligned, it makes me feel good on a soul level kind of desire. If the idea of having more open space in my life and not being in a relationship makes me feel really good, How do I get to that place? Which again is, how do I work through my fears? How do I work through my triggers? Maybe you've not, been modeled healthy conflict or being able to kind of do that relationship breakup in a way that's conscious. You need to learn those skills, right? Like then it becomes, how can I enact it in a way that feels safe and feels aligned? But the answer of, is it my intuition or is it my fear, could actually be a pretty easy one to answer. Right? It's usually our fear, again, another fear thing, about what it means to enact that decision that makes us tell ourselves like, oh, I don't know what I want. Or like, oh, I'm not sure. Or no, I don't have clarity. Now, you could get clarity pretty quickly. But again, your fear about what it might mean once you have clarity is making you stop and not even get to the point where it is revealed to you which one you really want. You know what I'm saying? So those are my thoughts about if you're trying to distinguish anxiety or intuition about relationship. Let's talk about this premonition one and this kind of intrusive thoughts one, because this is something that I have really been working with myself. I'll be totally honest, because I have no reason not to be. It's not something I'm ashamed of at all, and I don't think it's something you have to be ashamed of at all. I do think there are people that are very psychically sensitive to the future and do have the ability to tap into very likely futures. Okay. And just again, to remind you, from what I've seen from the Akashic Records, there are many paths in front of us. There are paths that are more likely based on the choices that we're like in habit of making, based on feelings that we're in habit of feeling, right? It's almost like energetically we have the most momentum towards certain paths for sure, but there are so many paths that are open, and we can change our energy at any moment in time. That also changes our path at any moment in time. Okay. But I do think that there are some people that are very psychically sensitive to sensing the most likely path that people themselves are on. And this can also mean sensing events that do, maybe it's other people passing or quote unquote bad things happening. I do think that that is a thing. I do think some people have a gift for that. I will say that if you have that kind of gift, you know that you have that kind of gift, because like really crazy big things that you had literally no reason to know it was going to happen probably already happened. Like you probably already know. And most of those people shut down that gift, like subconsciously. So I would say probably 95% of the people who are listening and questioning, like if these really terrible things that I'm afraid of happening, like is this a premonition of it happening? Probably not. Okay. Not to say that it's impossible, but it's probably not. And I will say too, this is an experience that I have not had yet, of course, being a mother, but like, I also think there's something for like a mother's intuition, but I also know for a fact when you're a mom, like you experience a whole nother level of anxiety, like whole nother, and like the intrusive thoughts, whole nother level when you're a mom. I've heard this from so many people, from my friends who are mothers, like it is on another level. So yes, do I believe that you can get feelings about things related to your kids to help keep them safe? Like, can you be a channel for their intuition to help keep them in safe places? 100%. But again, I think 95% of the time, probably 98% of the time in the case for mothers, like if you're getting a fear about something with your child, it's probably fear talking, not premonition or intuition. Okay. And this is the last thing I'll say about the mother thing for now. Even the circumstances of like, you hear those stories about, the mom who kept their kid home at school when there was like a crazy like thing that happened at school and where, people got hurt or whatever. Like even in those stories, on those days, it wasn't that the mothers were in a state of fear and anxiety. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. You can't go to school. You can't go to school today. In those stories, how I have read and heard them is that they just had a feeling. And they weren't freaked out about it. They weren't scared about it. But they were just like, I envision you being home today. Like, I just don't see you going to school today. Like, it's weird for me to think about driving you to school. Like, I can't see it. Right? Again, that's a little bit of the vision, like the third eye vision thing I was talking about before. Or like, the feeling of you going to school just feels weird in my body. And again, it's not even like a scared feeling, but it's just like like when you smell something bad and your whole body like leans away from it. Like, it's that kind of thing, but energetically. Okay. Like, it's just, I just didn't feel it. And so I just trusted that, right? I think a lot of big, like intuitive feelings come through and feel pretty calm. Okay. So it's just something to think about. Let's talk about like mother-child instances, because I think this is going to be a little bit easier to explain. My experience is that the intuition is always going to lead you with what feels good, okay? It's always going to be in the language of that soul level desire, not necessarily a craving, right? Because there's a difference between like me craving like having a couple glasses of wine versus like me really desiring to, I don't know, like get up and go for a walk, or like me desiring to call up a friend because it would be really nice to talk with her, even though I haven't talked to her in a really long time, right? Like there's a difference between like the craving and desires. Again, craving comes from like an ego fear mind place. It also comes from us repressing previous desires. And so it's like an indirect way that we're trying to express these desires is through craving. So there is a little bit to be said for differentiating the two. And the way that you can differentiate those is by knowing yourself, knowing your feelings, knowing your body. But what I'm talking about is that like soul level desire. It feels really expansive. It feels really open. It feels really bright. Again, when you think about it, when you visualize it in your body, it just feels open and soft and good. I believe intuition speaks through those feelings. And giving you those feelings is how it puts you in good spots. If we go back to that example of a car driving down the side of a mountain, okay? How I would imagine that would happen for me is me thinking, oh, like that would be really nice. Just something about this view is capturing my attention in a way that it usually doesn't. Like I'm so in awe of this view. Like I just really, really want a picture. I desire a picture. I would love to have a picture. Or like, oh, then all of a sudden, like, my back kind of hurts. Oh, it would also kind of be good to maybe get out and stretch a little bit, right? Like these are all like your body, your intuition nudging you towards like pull over to the picture. It's not by, oh my God, are there cars? Like, oh my God, I'm so freaked out. Like, like, is there going to be, it's like an intrusive thought, but like where all of a sudden you're imagining a car crash because yes, I've totally got those, like, right? And that's why you pull over. No, that's not what's motivating it. It's like, oh, I just really like the idea of taking this picture. I really like the idea of pulling over and getting some fresh air and stretching a little bit and like, oh, I could get something out of the back of my car that I want to too. Like that is the language of the intuition. Okay. That is one of the biggest ways that you can differentiate. And again, the problem is that when we're so dysregulated all the time, we're in the energy of urgency. Everything feels life or death. And when you're in this urgency, everything is life or death energy, you don't allow yourself to follow the whims and the nudges of your intuition. You don't have time for that. You don't have this for that. You don't, no, I don't need to. I need to get there. Like it blocks you from following your intuition. And so the intuition that's trying to guide you into a way that's a little bit easier doesn't get explored, doesn't get validated so that you can build proof that your intuition is trustworthy, right? Because you're locked in this dysregulated, everything's life or death. My survivability is threatened all the time, so therefore I must be urgent about literally everything kind of energy. You know what I'm saying? And here's the other thing that I've been telling myself about like the fear intrusive thought things. Because for me, this is how it turns out. Some examples. I'm like taking my daily walk with my dogs or by myself. And all of a sudden I have this thought of like a van driving up and snatching me and me being kidnapped because I have my headphones in, right? That is not a premonition. That is fear conditioning and a time in my life when I listened to way too much true crime, and I was programmed by my mother and all these people that like, you can't walk by yourself and definitely don't have headphones in because all these bad things happen. It's like that is a result of programming plus fear. Okay. That's making me flash this whole image of me like getting picked up on the side of the road. Okay. Not a premonition. Definitely fear. Doesn't mean it's not any less real. Doesn't mean that it doesn't like make my heart skip and then all of a sudden I'm looking around and like whatever. Examples in my mind. What are some other ones? Like driving in my car and like imagining all of a sudden there's like a car crash. Same kind of thing. I have like weird intrusive thoughts about like things happening to my pets all the time. Like all of a sudden, like what if there's some big accident and they like injure themselves and I come home and like my pets are dead or something, right? Like crazy shit. Like that kind of stuff happens to me about my dogs. They're the closest thing I have to children right now. Like I can only imagine what it is for moms, right? Or even like taking them out on hikes. Like, oh my God, like what if there's an animal and they get attacked? Like crazy stuff. It's not actually crazy. It's actually very normal that our brains are doing this with a lot of like the fear conditioning that we've got. And again, when we're in a little bit of a dysregulated state, like it's actually very normal that these kinds of things would happen. It's our brain working, trying to protect us and protect the things that are important to us, but it is not our intuition. This is what I've been saying to myself that has been helping me with those moments is one, right here, right now, I am safe. The people I love are safe. My body is safe. And for the next foreseeable future, I am safe. I'm grateful for being safe because again, when we tune into gratitude, we're magnifying, we're perpetuating that kind of experience. And I'm trying to perpetuate experiences where good things are happening. You know what I'm saying? So first I like lock back into safety, which is also a way of regulating my body. Another thing that I read in a book that's been really helpful was about this whole concept of worry. They basically explain that worry is preoccupying on potential problems of the future, trying to figure out a solution to potential problem in the future so that your brain can feel peace because it feels like any problem that will happen will be able to be solved. And it's only when problems have a known solution that your brain will say, okay, I'm safe. Because remember, our brain is not very comfortable with the unknown. Okay? You're trying to anticipate problems that have not happened yet, not even guaranteed to happen, and you're trying to solution them ahead of time. Okay? That's what worry is. Okay? And what this book described is that the way that the universe works is once you ask, it is already given. Like what you want is literally already waiting there for you. You've already manifested what you want as soon as you've asked the question. So it's waiting for you, okay? It is the same thing and related to problems and solutions. As soon as there's a problem, there are multiple solutions that are waiting for you. When problems are actually manifested and generated, their solutions are manifested and generated at the same time. Not before, not after. At the same time. And the proof of this is literally any problem you have ever experienced. When you came to the point in time where you had some sort of difficulty or problem, you had the tools and the resources and the ideas and the inspiration to navigate that problem once you got there. Problems and solutions come at the same time together. That's why worrying about things is folly, as this book described, is that you can't try to anticipate things that are going to happen, like literally anything can happen, and you're constantly creating your reality. So if you want good things to happen, don't spend your mental energy, which is sending out signals of what the universe should be creating around you, to be bad things, right? So again, worry is trying to anticipate potential problems that haven't even happened yet. They're not even real. They haven't even manifested. And trying to match up solutions to them before you've even gotten there. But what this book described is that you have to have trust in the present moment, and you have to have trust in yourself, self-trust, to navigate any situation that comes up. And you have to trust the universe to provide you with anything that you could possibly need in any situation should it arise. You have to believe that the universe is not trying to set you up to suffer. It's not trying to set you up to have bad things happen to you, which means that if there is a situation that appears to be difficult, that in that same breath, there are going to be options that are presented to you to help you navigate towards goodness, for there to be something good that comes out of it, for you to be able to navigate through it safely. We got to tap into that level of faith and that level of self-trust if we do not want to be a slave to our fears and our worries. We have to. And again, this comes from a place of self-trust, okay? So even like when my intrusive thoughts come up, I just say to myself, that is not a right now problem. Right now I'm safe. I trust myself to handle any problem that might come up. And I also know that solutions only come at the same time that the problem actually comes. So I don't have to worry about figuring out the solution. I know that there will be one. There will probably be multiple options for the solution if this problem actually manifested. It will. And in the meantime, I can be in peace because I believe good things happen to me. And if something did happen that was perceived as maybe bad or wrong, like there is good in it for me. Like that's just what I believe about my life. So I can let this worry and this fear go. I understand that it's here to protect me. I'm not judging myself that it's here. It's okay, right? Solutions come at the same time as problems. So I don't have to mastermind this ahead of time. And I trust myself to handle anything that comes my way. Okay? I think that this mantra is beautiful, even if you identify what your intuitive feeling is about something and there's unknown elements and that feels really risky. I trust myself to handle any situation and to act in my best interest and to do things that keep me safe and to do things that keep me feel supported and protected. I trust the universe to support me and protect me, right? Like these are the kinds of beliefs that you have to build up around yourself and in your own psyche to, one, be able to identify your intuition in the first place, because again, we have to be in a place of safety. But two, if you want to start acting on your intuition, those beliefs have to be built out around it in order for you to act in a way that has inherent risk, that has inherent unknowns, and not have your ego mind, your body's physiology trying to keep you safe, kick in and override you acting from an intuitive place. I will say that this is the work that I do with my coaching clients. If you want to learn how to spot what's your ego, if you want to learn how to spot what are limiting beliefs, if you want to learn how to process fears and triggers and old traumas so that you are not like a prisoner and a slave to them, and how you can put down the ego, dysregulated, safety-oriented part of yourself so that you can act from the expansive and the abundant and the loving and the joyful and the magical part of your soul. Like, that's literally what I'm teaching people how to do in really intensive containers. I have my 4-month one-on-one coaching that is now open for enrollment. I only have 4 spots though. At the time that I'm recording this, I don't even know how many will be open by the time that this airs. And then later this fall, I will be doing group coaching. If the one-on-one coaching just isn't something that is like an option for you right now, the group coaching is the next step down in pricing. It's also a little bit more general in topic, but still is a really powerful container. The next step down from that would be my single sessions, where you can just do one session of work with me, or when I do my little community things like the book club. So keep an eye out for all of that kind of stuff on healingwithbrie.net or on my social media or my email list. I make sure to let you guys know of all the options of how I can support you and how I have spots open to work with people there. But I hope that this information was supportive to you. I hope that it was helpful. I mean, it's a real thing. It is a real life thing, trying to figure out what is fear and what's your intuition. And essentially what's going to keep you safe and what is going to help you feel fulfilled on a soul level. Like, that can be a day-to-day struggle, okay? And I really, truly understand that. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be something that feels really clear. Again, getting the clarity itself is not usually the hard part. It's then acting out. And the reason why acting on it can be difficult is when we have places of resistance in our own self. And again, most of us have just not been taught how to move through and dissolve the resistance that we have to our own ideal life. It feels like that's kind of counterintuitive, that like we have this dream life, yet we are also holding resistance for it. But that's 100% how it works. And again, if you want support in like releasing resistance to your dream life and being really clear about when something's your intuition and when it's fear and how to be able to act on it, and you want to change the trajectory of your life by being able to truly understand that, I invite you to come work in my container, in my programs, because I would really love to support you in making that happen. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next time for more breakthroughs. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Breakthroughs with Brie. But before you go, please take a moment to either rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it, or share this episode or maybe one of your other favorites with friends or loved ones that you think might enjoy or benefit from this content. Both of those things help more than you know, so that I can keep creating these episodes to help us all have more breakthroughs. Remember, you can connect with me on social media, sign up for my email list, hear what products, services, or events that I'm currently offering, all in the link in the show description or by visiting my website, healingwithbrie.net. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support and for the time that you're taking to heal yourself and align more with your beautiful soul, as it helps us all so much more than you realize. I'll see you all next week for more breakthroughs.